This is about that sculpture I did of Rob Muldoon, and and here it is. Wait a minute, I need to do this so there's the right light on it or something. So this is a picture of the sculpture, and I've got the other reflection on the screen, and so Grant Edwards, he sent me a message about this today. I'm going to read it in a minute. It was very flattering. But so here's old Sir Robert Muldoon, and this is and further back on this page, on this YouTube thread, there's a video of me making the sculpture of him, and yeah, and you know, the idea was that he would. I talked to him about it, of course, beforehand, and you know, I said that I thought that you know, I needed to be looking off into the distance, so long-sighted, and you know, with sort of an approachable expression, and blah blah blah, and and this here is all that's left of it. It's life size, exactly life size, whatever. But you know, the old National Party at the time, they refused to pay to have it turned into bronze, which you know was something I never really forgave them for, and I you know these people in control in New Zealand. You know, New Zealand's a strange little place because, you know, doing that sculpture of Muldoon was a unique thing to do. And so then, you know, all these years later, by a sort of accident, my friend Jim Brady, he found it. He found a copy of that video and filmed it. And had it turned into digital so that I could bung it here on YouTube. I'm very proud of it. I was very proud of it at the time. But there's a few absolutely unique things about that project. You know, I'd sort of got involved in sculpture. That there up there on the wall is a later sculpture that I did. That was principal dancers from the New Zealand Ballet Company. But you know, right at Muldoon was sort of at the beginning of all that, when I was just discovering the fact that I could be a sculptor, and it was not long after doing this. You know, this is a very simple piece of sculpture, but hard to get far enough away from the camera, and it's hollow cast. And, you know, it's something that we developed ourselves, and it's slightly cartoonish. You know, but that was like the first sculpture that I did when I discovered that when I'd been in a fight, you know, these idiots from the Take Up Our pub came and started to brawl in the house, and I injured my foot in that brawl, and a potter came and gave me some, a local potter. I had told him in a conversation that I had a talent for sculpture as a kid. So he bought me some clay, and I did that sculpture, the bather. I think I found a picture of it or something in a book. And then one day, not long after that, these two. So I was mucking around, you know, and I made a couple of small sculptures. One that I should show you, which is part of the history of that, because I took it with me when I went to see Rob Muldoon. And so, but anyway, these two farmers' wives, quite a bit older than me, and they're just being social, really. And I was with Gypsy Bruce at the time. And these two ladies, Doreen and Lulu, used to come over and visit sometimes, and in between me mowing lawns, and we'd have a couple of gins sometimes, but usually just a sherry out on the lawn, not on the lawn, on the veranda. And so we're talking to these two women who they would have been 20 years older than me. The thing about older ladies is that they're friendly, and also, you know, they have usually distinctive features, so they're quite a bit easier to get a likeness of. And I'd never tried to get a likeness before in my life, so I sat down, got a couple of lumps of clay, and I stuck on, you know, just sort of as big as your hand, stuck them on the table, and I sat there while I talked to them and drank sherry, and made these little caricatures of these two ladies. And it didn't take very long. I was kind of surprised. I mean, they were right in front of me, and so, you know, it was relatively easy, but I was very surprised that I actually managed to get a likeness. So then next day, or that day or sometime close by, I kept on thinking about this business of a likeness, and Muldoon was the man at the time. He was the Prime Minister, and the media hated him. And the media, you know, they're such fuckwits. They can't help themselves, saying the thing that gets people in television media is ego, and the thing that keeps them there is stupidity. Anyway, and so I just got out of bed, so I'm a bit slow at the moment. And so I'm driving up and down the bloody great big lawn in my big mower, because I had to do that all the time, and thinking about this, and I thought, geez, I wouldn't mind doing a sculpture of Muldoon. I mean, it's cheeky and stupid, eh? So I ran inside on the wind-up phone, wound the fucking handle, and the idiot down at the exchange answered. I said, can you get me Parliament buildings? I wanted to talk to somebody in Parliament, so they put me through to Parliament, because it's a plug-in phone, you see, you know. And I said I wanted to talk to Muldoon's secretary, because I didn't think I'd be able to get him. So I said to the secretary, I said, I got this idea for doing. I said, you know, Muldoon, whenever he's on the TV, he's always confronted by fucking idiots. It'd be interesting to talk to him or hear him talk in a non-confrontational situation. So how about I do a sculpture of him? Didn't know I could do him then, really. And so how about I do a sculpture of him, and we'll talk. And I'll make a clay portrait of him, and there it is. And he can make a verbal portrait of himself. And so I talked to him about and so, you know, the person said, I can hang on a minute. And Muldoon came on the phone, and he said, well, what's this about? And I explained it to him again, very short sentences, you know, just. And he said, what did TVNZ say? And I said, well, I haven't talked to them yet. He said, well, call me back when you have. So I did. I called TV straight away. They agreed instantly, which astounded me. Because, you know, it's sort of free. It's a free go at Muldoon, they thought. And so it all gets organised, and we end up out there, and I'm sitting down to talk to him. But what I did, I had a good amicable conversation with him. And I said to him you know, you sort of have a sort of a resemblance to Churchill. And you know, I think that the media deliberately sort of present you in a way that's not particularly complimentary. And I said, what I'd like to do is do a sculpture of you that's sort of natural. And you and I can just talk. And, you know, I'm just an ordinary bloke. And so, but I can do sculptures for some reason. And I'd never done a proper portrait at that point. This is the first and the only portrait that I ever did. Look at it. And so, you know, I was surprised that I got the expression. I got this expression in the eyes. I got the sort of approachable expression in the mouth. Do you know what I mean? I wanted him to be sort of looking off into the distance, as a Prime Minister would need to be able to do, and hold his head erect and blah blah blah. And anyway, so I talked to him about all that. He kind of agreed with all that, and And so we sat down, on that first morning to talk. I mean, we'd had a talk in his office a couple of times, and I gave him a little sculpture that I made that I should have here with me, but I haven't. It's of a little gremlin. And so from then on, he kept it on his desk. And I was very proud of that, And I was very proud of the fact that the Prime Minister would come along and trust me to do that. So that was the only indication he had that I could make a sculpture of him. You got to hand it to him. And so then the first morning we're out there. And so I knew this cameraman, Wayne Vinton. I don't know why I knew Wayne, but he's a very reasonable sort of character. But most of those TV people are fuckwits. And still are, they seem to breed them. And they can't keep their politics out of what they do. Mind you, I didn't keep my politics out of what I was doing either, but I think that people who want to put themselves on television doing that sort of shit need to try and treat a middle line. And so Muldoon and I sat down in that room that morning with a camera, and we literally did 10 hours on 10 separate days, and they were consecutive except for a weekend. And the TVNZ people, they filmed 5 of them, and my father filmed the other 5, so we must have them somewhere. And so there we are, and I got this big lump of mud and bags in Muldoon's, in the lounge at Muldoon's sort of residence, which was a Vogel house out in our hut. And so I'm going to turn this bag of mud into a Muldoon lookalike. And, there was a certain amount of trepidation, but I did sort of seem, for some reason or another, to feel that I was going to be able to do it. And I had confidence that it was going to come out and it was going to look just like Muldoon, and of course it did. But so the way that I approached it is I didn't do what other... I've never done an interview, never interviewed anybody before in my life. Never done a sculpture of anybody before in my life either. So, and I was quite proud about that, I suppose, still am, because both of them came out reasonably well. Just goes to show you. So what I did was what I really wanted to do was keep him talking. And I didn't have any notes, but I'd sort of made some notes in my head about what I would ask him about. And I figured that, generally speaking, if I got him going, he would just chat away. And he did. And he gave me leads as well, and I gave him leads, and I didn't interrupt him, and I didn't contradict him. I didn't try and start an argument with him. I just wanted to talk to him. TV people don't know how to do that. They're too stupid. They'll only do that with a left-wing person who they're up their arse of. And so Muldoon had never been an interview of Muldoon done like that ever before or since. Because I thought that he had plenty of humanity, and I thought that he could look fairly severe, and he was a bit of an authoritarian, but he didn't do such a bad job, and so they got all that film. They got 10 out. They literally got 5 hours of film. It was the longest interview Rob Muldoon ever did. There's plenty of material, and the director guy, who all he ever did was sit there in a corner, he said to me afterwards, he said, "We've got enough material here for about 5 programs." And so they cut it down to, I think it's probably 23 minutes or something, because they had to leave room for ads. And so that's what they presented, and I said, and so we were coming, we were about sort of 4 months away from an election, from Muldoon's last election. And I said to them, "When are you going to show it? When are you going to run it?" And they said, "Oh, not till after the election." "Why not?" "Oh, because it would give him too much of an advantage." Fuck off. It would just show him in real life with an ordinary person who was just chatting away with him. It was a unique bit of television. I don't know what they've done with the other sort of all the rest of it, but it's probably been dumped because that's what they would do, because they're sort of left-wing people anyway, and so left-wing people will always cheat. That's what they do. They get angry with everybody else, and then they cheat themselves. And so, but so, it was very gratifying for me to have the Prime Minister sitting there in front of me. And I was being careful, and I didn't, I thought carefully about all of the questions I was going to ask him. I listened to what he had to say, but I had to concentrate on things, and there were gaps in the sort of narrative when I was, trying to get expression around the eyes and that sort of thing later on. But I mean, when I first started, it was a bit of a blob, I mean, obviously, you don't walk into a thing like that without something blocked out. You can sort of do that. And so I'd done that. And you had to get his shape of his head right. And that includes the back of the head. You can't just do the front of the head. Proportions have got to be right. The way. And, I think I did a good job. And like I said, it was a unique thing to do. Unique. And it showed the man, it showed the man in a very relaxed way, which TVNZ didn't know how to do. And they still don't. They're all fuckwits. And so you can tell, that I don't like media very much. I mean, especially now with all the fucking horseshit that they put on the TV. Good God. And so, so anyway, we finished that thing. They paid me $250. And for something that was absolutely unique. But you see, New Zealand, it's New Zealand. New Zealand, people in New Zealand don't have the ability to spot something that is completely unique. They just don't, I mean, nothing. If I'd have been in another country, I'd have done really well. But no, I was born in New Zealand, so thanks, Mum and Dad. I think that New Zealand, culturally, New Zealand's got fuck all to offer the world, really. I mean, it thinks that haka's a good idea, but fuck me dead. I mean, if that's all you got to offer, you're pretty pathetic. And so, but and it's like that sculpture behind me up there on the thing. I mean, I approached that with great care. It's finely detailed. It's a body and facial portrait of those two people. And they sort of go, but if it was all wonky and had some squirrely wiggles on it or something, people would go, oh. So as you can see, I have very little respect for what happens in New Zealand, really. I do wish that I had been born elsewhere. I think that my ability as a sculptor would have given me a great career in the United States or Europe. But, I sort of was dedicated to New Zealand, and particularly dedicated to Aurora Homestead because, it got all my time, energy and effort. And the things that I should have been doing were always slightly on the back burner. So all the sculpture was on the back burner. And so I didn't turn that into a proper career, whereas I should have. But when you can sit down with a Prime Minister, with cameramen and whatever around, and in the space of 5 hours turn it into, from a blob of mud to that, there's something going on that unfortunately in a country like New Zealand doesn't get recognised because they're too stupid to see it. And so, in a way, after all that was done, I just put it all aside. I left it I left it and sitting in my workshop. Got sick of keeping it wet because I was waiting for them to, because it's clay, so you've got to keep it wet. Clay shrinks when it dries, and so then it shrinks and cracks, and so you just lose it. And that's what happened. That's why this is like this. And so that was the only substantial bit that I could get. So I saved it. And so there we are. I've still got it. So it ain't going to go anywhere any further than that. But basically, the whole thing's gone. Just went to the dump. To the dump, to the dump, to the dump, dump, dump. in my next life I'm going to stay away from New Zealand.